In today's episode of the Pathmark Presents podcast, I have an interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Scott Batchelor, and he's hailing over from the team at XWP, and they are all about great and fantastic websites. I mean, a topic that we love here, obviously, on the Pathmark Presents podcast. And today we want to deep dive what XWP is actually all about and how they're building a better web at enterprise scale. So, Scott, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Glad to be here.
Of course, yeah. So maybe give us a quick overview. What is XWP all about in your own words?
Sure. Yeah. So XWP is a full stack, full service web development agency. We have a real strong focus on performance and we work with a lot of large scale publishers. But I think what really sets us apart is our approach. We're all remote. There's 115 of us. We're spread across 35 countries in 18 time zones, working asynchronously together. And we have an active role in giving back to the open source technologies that we use. We're really active in the WordPress community and the open web communities, and we're really, sort of faces that you see at a lot of the events and active in those conversations.
Very cool. Now, maybe tell us a little bit more about the sort of, how the product is being used. Like, what do people, why do people get started with XWP? What do they want to do? What do they want to achieve? Why do they get in touch?
Sure. So it starts with some very basic problems a lot of the time. We have people who are experiencing a lot of technical debt that's slowing their site down. They're struggling with their editorial process, or they have really complex setups. Our team come in to break that down, provide a true performance mindset that helps unleash their teams and get them working better again. We make collaboration easier, and we make the whole publishing process easier as well. The way we do that is through technical expertise, ranging all the way from engineers to product specialists to designers, and we really can get involved in every part of the process. What's really important to us at XWP is that we dig into the core business problem that you're having, and we'll never just prescribe a solution without fully understanding what the cause and effect is going to be, and what the best solution, the best possible solution for your business would be.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, what types of businesses do you guys typically work with? Like, who's sort of, an ideal fitting client? Do I need a certain amount of traffic? Should I have a certain amount of, page speed ranking? Like, what is the, what's the sort of makes me a great fit for XWP?
Sure. So we work with a lot of publishers. We have an extensive portfolio of publishers that we've worked with in the past. Big names like PMC, who have Rolling Stone and Variety. But we also work with hosting providers. We've also worked with technology houses. We've done a lot of work with Google in the past, launching new ways to tell stories like web stories. So in terms of the people, and we also have worked with a lot of charities as well. It's really important as part of our giving back value that we work with people who are doing good in the community. Our aim is to help and to make things better in terms of editorial flows, in terms of web performance. We really want to give control back to the people who are publishing these amazing stories, right?
Very cool. Okay, so how do these folks, that we just spoke about, how do they learn about XWP? Like, what's their journey like? In other words, what are the typical client acquisition channels that you guys leverage?
Sure. So there's a few ways that people tend to find us. Referrals are really strong, of course. Any sort of B2B marketer knows that a good personal review goes a really long way, especially when we've worked with some of the names that we have. We also use sites like Clutch, which again, to anybody in our space is super familiar, but Clutch is an impartial ranking site where clients can go and chat with somebody from Clutch and leave a full review in terms of how they found the service, how they would rate the quality, the communication, which is something really important to us as an async organization, and their overall experience of working with XWP. We're also lucky to have some fantastic partners. So we work with some of the biggest and best hosting platforms that are also share our performance mindset. And we've got a really long-standing mutual history with a lot of these partners. So we've usually got preferred partner status, which brings people towards us. And then more recently, a big investment and a big channel that we're finding more and more people are finding XWP is organically, through the content that's being published, through our presence on social, through the creation of assets that are going to be useful to people. We're finding that's driving traffic towards us now as well.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Now, how do you, I mean, you're in content generation, right? So you've seen a content creator for the organization. How do you think about the website? Like, what role do you think the website, your own website, xwp.co, for everybody who's interested in, you can head over there, xwp.co or co. What role does the website play, you think, in their journey?
Yeah, so the website's super important. Of course, being as a way of getting people organically in and looking at our services as part of a normal marketing funnel, we really try and use our website as a place to educate. You know, this is something that we've touched on a few times in XWP, talking to external outlets. But one of the things that's very often forgotten in a very technical organization when you're talking about crunching numbers and working with performance is that some of these, some of the things that we do are incredibly complex. And we want to take the opportunity on the website to break this down into business value and say, hey, this is why core web vitals are important to your business. Here's the, the sort of return that you could see if you invest in making performance part of your own mindset as well. So that's something that's really important for us going forward, and also in terms of recruitment as well, which is something that's very, very often overlooked. We use complete transparency when it comes to our recruitment process, and we use our website to display our fantastic community spread out all over the globe, to talk about the events that we're part of, the ways that we're giving back to WordPress, which is our tool of choice. We have a number of core contributors who are sponsored for their work, maintaining and adding to WordPress core. So it's really a place that you can learn about XWP's culture, what makes us unique, and also on the services side, get some of these technical things broken down into something that makes sense.
Obviously a lot of marketers we have on the show, they see different strengths versus different room for improvement on their website. Sort of where do you see currently what is the strength of the current XWP page versus where do you even see maybe potential and room for further development and improvement?
Sure. I think it's very much linked to the industry that we operate in, is where our strengths and weaknesses lie. So we've been very, very strong at XWP, really promoting our company culture. It's very easy for us to talk about our core values and how we want to be masters of our craft and how we aim to give back at every possible opportunity, which has made it, the website is a real beast when it comes to recruitment. We do fantastically there, and we're able to really accurately display what it's like to be a part of XWP. It is a really exciting community to be a part of. Where we notice the gaps and where the improvements are focusing, and we're already seeing return on this, is making sure that we're not neglecting that the broken down technical content that I was also talking about before. So really sort of tightening up the way that we're talking about our services, talking about how the true partnership that we try to create with people. This is an area that we're working on tightening up, because previously it left a few gaps while we were finding our feet and finding our voice in that space. So it's an ongoing improvement, but it's something that we're seeing returns on very quickly.
Yeah, very cool. Now, one thing is, and maybe you tell me if I'm not sure if that touches on the content side of things. So we feel free to let me know if it doesn't. We have more and more marketers starting to sort of talk about the cookieless future a little bit. Is that something that in your circles marketers are already discussing? Is that something you've been looking into? It's just been recently popping up on the podcast. Maybe is there any experience that you've been seeing, or is it a topic that doesn't really cross your desk really?
Sorry, I missed the thing that you mentioned there.
The cookieless future, right? So that cookies are going to be getting out of the browser, and basically, basically allowing users to have an entirely cookieless experience. Is that something content-wise? Because it obviously touches on websites quite a bit. Is that something you've been seeing people talking about?
Yeah, it's an ongoing conversation with our engineers at the moment, but it's not something that the conversations will always start with the technical experts in terms of leading our website, leading our web presence. So it's not something that I've been particularly involved in so far, talking about that.
No, no worries at all. Cool. So we talked about XWP quite a bit. We talked about who you're working with, what you're doing for them, what performance driven websites, what's the purpose of them, how you guys providing them to them quite easily. Now I would love to learn a little bit more about your role as a content marketer, right? So basically there is a lot of content about writing content out there, right? So you could read and learn all day long. What's your go-to resources? Where do you like to personally educate yourself?
Sure. So really, I think a lot of the time it comes to, especially when you're talking about performance, we're very often having to react to changes from search engine operators like Google. So going straight to the Google blogs, picking up as much as you can from them. They do a really great job already of breaking some of these things down, as well as offering that really deep technical deep dive into what these changes mean. So of course, watching on them. And other outlets as well that do a lot of independent research. Kinsta comes to mind as a really great organization that do a lot of independent research that we can pick up and use and really prove some of these points that we're saying. On top of that, we like to go away and do our own research as well and figure out, what some of these changes in the industry might mean. For example, where your current core web vital standard might leave you in the landscape of your industry. Things like this, we like to dig in and we like to figure it out ourselves as well. So we're also very lucky working in open web and working with WordPress and open source technology. Lots of information is already shared and already available. That performance mindset that we have internally at XWP is shared across that whole community. And the sharing of information is seen as something that's been very, very crucial to success.
Very cool. As we slowly moving to the end of the interview, I would have some rapid fire questions for you. They're a bit of a surprise, but they're very harmless. Are you ready for those?
Okay, sure.
Very good. So what's the last book you read or the last podcast you listened to?
Oh, the last book that I read was 1984 by George Orwell. So that was the last book that I read. The last podcast that I listened to was a comedy podcast from the UK called the Have a Word podcast. So yeah, that was the last one.
What's one single thing your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Performance. That's the main thing that we try and get across is how important performance is.
If there would be no boundaries in technology, right? You could do everything as a content marketer. What's the one thing you would change for your role?
Oh, it's a very good question. The ability to rapid fire, create quick demonstrations that prove value. I think if there was some way of magically attaining these like walkthroughs that show a client, here's what your website could look like with our attention, just produced like that, that would be amazing.
For the very last question, just would do a little bit of time travel. Let's travel back to the days of the University of Leeds. You're heading out of formal education into the world of content and marketing and growth. What's the one advice you would give yourself for your journey?
Sure, it's a good question. Be bold. Let creativity drive you. Marketing and content creation is a place to explore. And also, I think as an attachment to that, don't try to act smarter than you are. When you're entering a new industry and you're working with a new client, a lot of the time, the person who's reading the information you're putting out, they also need this jargon broken down. It's also very new to them. So use that to your advantage.
That makes a lot of sense. I think it's actually in general a very, very great writer's tip to actually just break it down to people. So, Scott, we really appreciate you took the time with us today to be a guest on PathMonk Presents. So thanks a lot for joining today's episode.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.